Alrighty, so I just wanted to make a video on my top 5 favorite fighters. There's no UFC for a while, so I gotta get my daily slop out, you know what I mean? But, yeah, with that being said, I have 5 fighters here. All of them are kind of like my top 5, and all of them can be kind of mixed around, you know? I don't really like one more than the other, but, you know, it's kind of like Pokemon, you know what I mean? There's just so many fighters that sometimes you just can't have one favorite. But with that being said, just going to jump into it for my favorite fighters, starting with Ilia Topuria. Now, I like this guy because he absolutely is a fucking demon in his division, and I love it. We needed finishers, we got finishers in featherweight. You know, Ilya's making featherweights look like they don't even fucking belong, even some of the greatest of all time, you know? But we gotta be careful when we go up to short notice lightweight, you know what I mean? But yeah. Absolutely whooped Ryan Hall, even though Joe Rogan was glazing the fuck out of him. You know, beat Bryce Mitchell. Arguably lost the first round, but no, he did beat Bryce Mitchell, which is a really good win. And then by the Josh Emmett fight, you know, Josh Emmett's a dangerous opponent, and Ilia Topuria whooped his ass. But after he knocked out Volkanovski, it kind of took me a while to get a liking to him. But I will say, you know, I like him a lot more in the Max Holloway knockout. When I saw Volkanovski get knocked out, it was like watching a relative die. You know, but when I saw Max Holloway getting knocked out, I was kind of conflicted. I didn't know whether to cheer or be like, oh man, Max Holloway's shin's gone now, you know? But I do like this guy's personality, man. He does talk shit. You know, talking shit to old man Volk, love that. Talking shit to Max Holloway about the boxing, love that. Talking shit to Islam Makhachev, and mainly putting his knockout on his Instagram constantly. I love to see that. That's what we need from UFC fighters. Ilia Topuria is pretty much the ideal UFC fighter. Talks the shit, backs it up, finishes the GOATs, defending his belt, is a champion, wants to be double champion, moving up to lightweight soon. Everything about this guy is like, you gotta love him, you know? Probably his biggest offense is being friends with Merab Dvalishvili. Other than that, there's really nothing bad to say about Ilia Topuria, you know? He is slowly becoming one of my more favorited fighters. He definitely, like, out of all of these fighters I'm going to get into, he's probably, like, my least favorite of them all. But he's definitely up there. You know, I really like what he's doing for the sport. I love the fact that he's a prospect, obviously. You know, he's young, he's still talking shit, everything like that. Love it. Everything about this guy, I love. But moving on to number 4. One of the old heads, some of the old guards, some would say. And that person is Dustin Poirier, the Diamond. So, yeah, I love Dustin Poirier still. You know, I picked Dustin Poirier to beat Benoit. I think I did. Maybe I didn't, actually. I don't even remember if I did or not, but I remember talking about Dustin Poirier like he could whoop Benoit Saint Denis. A lot of people are saying Benoit Saint Denis had staph infection. He said he had staph infection. I mean, who really knows, guys? You know? But to be honest with you guys, Dustin Poirier is the only reason why I even found out UFC existed. Mainly because while I was on my weight loss, yes, I am a former fat man. Feel free to get your jokes out while you can. Yeah, at one point I was a big fat dude, and the first time I ever saw a UFC fight, I think, was actually Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler. You know, the blood spilling and everything. I originally thought UFC was scripted. And if it wasn't for this fight with Michael Chandler, I would have genuinely gone my probably whole life thinking that the UFC is scripted and would have never gotten into it. But ever since I saw that fight with Dustin Poirier and Michael Chandler, I instantly got hooked onto UFC, and ever since then I've been watching every single fucking card religiously. It's a problem, I'm not gonna lie. You know, this shit is my drug addiction, if you will. But yeah, not only because of that fight, but obviously I've gone back and watched his fights. I watched his McGregor fights. They were pretty cool fights. You know, snapping his leg in half, talking shit. You know, he's pretty decent at talking shit when he can. The Dan Hooker fight, namely, is one of my favorite fights to watch, especially nowadays. Max Holloway fight, another banger. Justin Gaethje won, another banger. Like, every fight he has is just really fucking good. And he rarely has, like, a stinker, you know? So, yeah, there's nothing to really hate about Dustin Poirier, you know? Other than the fact that sometimes he gets a little high and mighty and been like, nah, I'm gonna wait out for a title shot off a loss. That's kind of like when it's just like, brother, you need a win. You gotta play the game. But, you know, donates to a charity. has hot sauce. Tried the hot sauce. Sick-ass hot sauce. You know, hot as fuck, to be honest with you. Maybe I'm just a pussy, but damn, that shit's hot. But yeah, Dustin Poirier, one of my favorite fighters by far. Definitely, I like him more than Charles Oliveira. I like him more than Gaethje. You know, even though he did recently get knocked out by Gaethje, I think this guy's sick. I think he's a cool dude, you know? And he's always going to be a gamer, always a fun dude, even when he's trying to get a fucking 15th guillotine attempt, when he should just be throwing his hands to try to knock out people. You know, I respect it. Pretty close fight with Islam. It was 2-2 going into the 5th, to be fair, as well. So yeah, Dustin Poirier, one of my favorites. The Diamond, I hope he never... I hope he never... I hope he does retire on top, you know? Maybe not with a belt, but with a lot of fights under his belt, you know? A lot of fights in the history with Dustin Poirier. I just want to see good fights from him. Maybe a Max Holloway too. You know, he kind of has fought the who's who. And I guess he showed with the Benoit Saint Denis he can just whoop any fucking contender there is. Maybe he'll fight Sarukian or something. I don't know. Regardless, Dustin Poirier is pretty much guaranteed fireworks no matter what fight he's in, especially in recent history. So yeah, he's one of my favorite fighters. I think it's fair to put him here. Moving on, we have someone who I either rate as equal or just slightly below. Dan Hooker. I did not realize this was Tapology. Oops. Yeah, Dan Hooker has slowly become my favorite fighter over the course of this year. You know, his win over Jalen Turner was really fun to watch. And I picked him against Gamrot, and I think he whooped Gamrot. And I've just been watching a lot of Dan Hooker fights recently, you know? Like an Arnold Allen, like a Dustin Poirier when he lost there. You know, the Edson Barbosa fight, namely, when he got TKO'd. That was one of the sickest fights I think I've ever seen. Purely because I love Dan Hooker for the simple fact that he will fight until he's at 0 HP. There are some fighters who they'll fight until it's like their chin goes. They'll fight until like they get beaten, and then eventually you see them crumple up in the corner like an Anthony Smith, you know, or they'll go down to something and they'll just like quit. Dan Hooker doesn't know what quit is. Dan Hooker will be in there 100%, and if you don't finish him, you are in for a long fucking fight, you know? And while he has lost decisions in the past, like to Dustin Poirier, he is like, you have to outgame you have to outgame Dan Hooker, and that's what I love about him, you know? When Edson Barbosa finished him, it was literally like, I don't know how a human being can take that much punishment, and you can even see in his face, and the way his body was reacting. It's just like, how is a human standing up to that damage? Like, it's insane, you know? It's absolutely, it's crazy to think about, you know? And he's fought a large number of people. Gilbert Burns, Jim Miller, you know? Paul Felder, Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler, Nazarat Hakparas, you know, Islam before, Arnold Allen, like Jalen, like he's fought so many good names, you know, and he's doing well now, you know. But yeah, I love all Dan Hooker fights. Even when he loses, he makes it entertaining. Kind of similar situation with Dustin Poirier, one of my favorite fighters, you know, especially in the UFC currently. But yeah, anyways, moving on to the next pick. And I'm sure a lot of people have been hopping on this train, but I've been on this train for a little bit. It is none other than Diego Lopez. Now, Diego Lopez has quickly become one of my favorites. He is entertaining, start to finish. Absolute Chad, inside and outside of the cage. Has a badass tick, you know, like Dustin Poirier shorts picked up thing that he's got going on, shorts grab he's got. Diego Lopez kind of scratches at his Adam's apple because of I think a scar or an injury he sustained when he was younger. It's kind of aura filled whenever he does it, you know. It's like, oh shit, why is he scratching his neck like that, you know? So I love everything about this dude, you know. Made it so most of our Evloev can only fight once a year. Giga Chad moves so that he can go on a win streak, knocks out everyone or submits them in an impressive fashion like he did with Gavin Tucker. Some of the sickest armbar transitions you'll ever see. Then we have the KO on Pat Sabatini. Quick, easy work. Then he knocked out Sadiq Youssef and 1 second less. And then he fights Dan Ige where he weighed in 3 times within 1 day. Insane, madman. And he still took it to Dan Ige, made it an absolute banger of a fight. and then he knocks out Brian Ortega within a second, and then wakes him up right after. Absolutely insane. His losses are kind of crazy to think about because of a Joe Anderson Brito, an arguable robbery back in the day, and then, you know, he's been finished before, but he fights insane. Like, he's got crazy hand speed, absolute gamer, he's young, could be a future Dustin Poirier, Dan Hooker type situation, you know, and that's kind of why Diego Lopez is up here. But with all that being said, let's get into my final pick for favorite fighters going into 2025, and that is none other than the Butcher, Bryan Battle. Now, I know this might be a weird pick. I know some people might disagree. I know some people might think he's a fraud. But I really like Bryan Battle, man. I like his passion. I like how he talks shit. I like how he gets in people's faces. I like how, you know, right after the Ange Loosa fight, when the no contest happened, where Ange Loosa was trying to be like, what can you do? Bryan Battle's talking shit like I was whooping your ass. Right after, he's saying that he's going to whoop his brother's ass in the crowd. You know, he's about to get 2 bodies that night. You know? Absolutely insane. Has a smoking hot girlfriend, just saying. Also, insane finisher. Former fat man, so I relate to the brother, you know what I mean? So I relate to the former fat man. Fun fact, he has been knocked out at heavyweight. That was an insane fight to see. If you haven't seen the highlights, it's crazy. But yeah, I love Bryan Battle. I love everything about this dude. I love his drive to want to improve. I love the way he's just slowly rising up in the rankings in welterweight. I love the fact that this guy, he made his debut at heavyweight and was like, yo, I can be something in the sport. And he went to welterweight, and now he's making a run to the title. I love this shit, bro. I love it, you know? I like to see a former fat man improve. But yeah, he's one of my favorites right now, you know? Can relate to the dude. Absolutely entertaining to watch, as far as I'm concerned. I love watching all of his fights. I love his, you know, walks out to in Paris, in France, and then he whoops the French dude, and then he gets on the mic talking shit, and even when he has a kind of a stinker of a performance, he's still talking shit on the mic. So I love to see it. Nothing but respect for Bryan Battle. Absolutely one of my favorite fighters right now, and I truly believe in my boy, Bryan the Butcher Battle. But with all that being said, just want to do a quick one. You know, got to get that slot going. But, yeah, with all that being said, I want to thank you for making it to the end of this video, and as always, I hope you have a good day.